Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly fascinating source material to attempt something pretty profound together. We're going to try to completely shift our perspective on the unknown. Usually when we hit a wall of uncertainty, we treat it as this terrifying problem, right? Like it's a bug in the system that urgently needs to be solved, categorized, and conquered. But what if we flip that script? What if we started embracing the unknown, not as some enemy to defeat, but as a beautiful mystery to actually live within? Let's get into it.
To kick things off, let's just acknowledge some really intense, deeply human questions that we all face. Will our plans actually succeed? Are our relationships going to survive? Will our kids be happy? Or even the big one, what awaits us after death? These are the exact kinds of questions that trigger our deepest, most primal anxieties about the future. And hey, we all inherently want to know what's going to happen. It's entirely natural to crave that security and peace of mind.
But if we really want to grow, we've got to confront a pretty stark truth head-on, and that is absolutely no amount of planning can eliminate uncertainty. While our biological survival mechanisms practically scream at us to demand absolute certainty, kind of acting like a super overly sensitive car alarm trying to keep us perfectly safe, reality fundamentally refuses to cooperate. We can prepare for the future as best as we possibly can, sure, but we literally cannot possess it. All right, moving into Section 1, the desire for certainty and why we need order. Now, this drive for certainty isn't actually a bad thing at all. In fact, science itself completely relies on this deeply ingrained desire to seek order. We formulate hypotheses, test them against evidence, and construct explanations. This disciplined search for order has given us remarkable power over nature. It's undeniably one of humanity's greatest achievements. It's literally saved us from countless hardships that defined human existence for thousands of years. But this brings us to a fascinating catch, the paradox of progress. See, every single time we learn something new, we just expose how much we still don't know. Figuring out the physical mechanics of the brain suddenly opens up these massive, basically unanswerable questions about subjective experience and consciousness. Understanding the universe leads to asking why there's something rather than nothing, meaning our growing knowledge shouldn't make us arrogant. Actually, scratch that. It should actively make us so much more humble. So that brings us to Section 2, 3 truths of reality: complexity, contradiction, and uncertainty. Let's start with complexity. Just take a human being, for instance. A single person is a biological organism, a psychological individual, a social participant, a cultural being, and a conscious subject, all at the exact same time. You can't truly understand why someone is having a terrible day just by looking at their neurons under a microscope. Complex systems simply cannot be captured through simple linear explanations. It just doesn't work that way. Moving on to contradiction, and I absolutely love this point. A seed must disappear as a seed in order to become a tree. This is such a beautiful quote. It reminds us that reality frequently refuses to stay inside our rigid either-or categories. We really like to think in absolute opposites, right? But sometimes holding the tension between two things that seem totally at odds is absolutely necessary for growth. Our egos want permanence in a world completely defined by change. Sometimes the deeper truth is found exactly right there, in the messy relationship between contradictory forces. Finally, we face uncertainty. Out of all three, this one is often the toughest for our brains to handle. But consider this perspective shift for a second. Uncertainty actually creates space for possibility. Think about it. If the future were completely predetermined and we knew every single outcome in advance, things like choice, discovery, creativity, and surprise would lose their meaning entirely. The unknown is quite literally what makes an engaging, exciting existence possible. Next up is Section 3, understanding is not controlling, releasing the illusion. Now, here is a really crucial paradigm shift from our source material. We have got to untangle our ability to understand reality from the exhausting illusion that we can somehow control it. Because modern civilization has achieved such incredible power over nature, we've kind of fallen into this trap of believing everything should be controllable. Other people, history, nature, the future, our own bodies, even death. Our desire for control becomes a massive source of suffering when we demand certainty over realities that fundamentally just cannot provide it. So, true wisdom begins right here, in the vast open space between accepting the changing nature of life and demanding the power to stop that change. There is a profound difference between saying, I understand this, and saying, I can control this. We can completely understand suffering without having the ability to eliminate every single form of it.
We can understand mortality without having to somehow conquer death. Let's transition into section 4, from explanation to participation, encountering life.
If we want to participate fully, we first need to redefine a word we use all the time: mystery. Mystery means I know something, but what I know does not exhaust what there is to know. We really need to start seeing mystery not as some annoying puzzle to be rapidly solved and tossed aside, but as an ongoing, incredibly rich experience to just live alongside. Notice the really clear distinction we're making here. Ignorance simply says, I do not know. But mystery? Mystery acknowledges that our knowledge has profound limits. Mystery isn't the enemy of knowledge. Rather, it's what beautifully remains after knowledge has done its absolute best work. You can study the ocean scientifically for decades, but its deep, dark depths will still remain deeply mysterious to us.
As we develop as human beings, we tend to navigate 3 pretty profound questions. Early on, we just want an explanation. How does this work? Later on, we start searching for significance. What does this mean? But eventually, the ultimate question emerges. How should I live? And this is the question of true wisdom. We slowly start to realize that biological descriptions of mortality or psychological explanations of attachment don't actually teach us how to genuinely face death or how to deeply, truly love someone.
And that is because some truths simply cannot be fully grasped from a safe, comfortable distance. They strictly require our vulnerable, lived participation. The deepest understanding is embodied understanding. You understand love partly by, loving. You understand responsibility by actively taking responsibility. You understand impermanence by living through change. You can't just read a book about these things. You have to step into the arena and actually encounter them. Which brings us to our final part, section 5, the wisdom of not knowing, embracing intellectual humility. While our modern culture constantly rewards the rapid accumulation of facts and, let's be honest, having very definitive, very loud opinions, true maturity requires something a bit different. Knowledge asks, what is true? But wisdom asks, what should I do with what I know? Gathering information and expanding our capabilities is fantastic, for sure, but distinguishing between simply having data and knowing how to actually live well with it, that is the true mark of a mature mind. Ultimately, our big goal here is to move from immature reactions to mature responses. When faced with complexity, the immature response is oversimplification, but the mature response, that's deep attention. When faced with contradiction, immaturity brings polarization, while maturity brings discernment. We're moving from anxiety to humility, and from fear to wonder. This basically maps out exactly how to move from a fearful attempt to control reality toward a mindful capacity to live intelligently and beautifully within it. And this means we really have to embrace living without immediate closure. Openly admitting I do not know is not an admission of defeat. It's exactly what creates the possibility of learning. Saying I may be wrong creates the possibility of correction. And saying I cannot control this opens the door to actual, genuine acceptance. Living without closure isn't some act of resignation. It's an act of real existential courage. It frees us up to listen, to revise our views, and to genuinely wonder at the world. A truly wise person doesn't stand before the universe and claim to have conquered reality. Instead, they adopt this incredibly powerful grounding stance. I understand enough to live responsibly, but I remain open to what I do not yet understand. That right there perfectly balances humility with relentless curiosity. It allows you to navigate the world ethically, creatively, and effectively, all without that rigid, exhausting need to have a final answer for absolutely everything. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I'm going to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. Are you trying to eliminate the mystery of your life, or are you finally ready to live beautifully within it? I highly encourage you to stop aggressively forcing answers out of every single situation and instead start fully experiencing the profound, unanswerable questions of your own existence. Embrace the wonder, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this shared journey of discovery today. I'll catch you next time.